In today's episode of Don't Be a Bigot, Bill wrote a story about a sportscaster who has left channels 3 and 5.
Yes.
Apparently, his Twitter account had been connected to 2,000 likes of anti-Muslim tweets, stuff that effectively equated Muslims to terrorists. He says he was hacked. He says he was hacked for 3 years. But Bill, let's talk about it, man. What do you know?
Well, this is interesting. I mean, Meredith is the company that owns both of these stations. That's why he works for both of them, right?
Yeah.
Okay. They put out a statement that said he has chosen to pursue other opportunities or something like that. I think that's kind of gutless. Mm-hmm. I think if it is in fact the case that they had to let him go because of this, which they may have, and it is certainly their prerogative to do so, say so. Otherwise, did he get a good job offer in Denver or, like Pasadena or something?
Yeah.
Probably not. I don't know.
Here's the thing I think about, man. Not all Muslims are the same, right? There are Muslim white people, Muslim black people, Muslims from cities, Muslims from countries, Muslims from foreign lands, Muslims from the United States. It's a disparate group. And to paint that whole group with one brush, particularly that brush, is a huge problem. It leads me to think about depictions of people in media, because if you're a little boy or a little girl and you're Muslim and you're growing up and you look at TV and you never see any stories of people like your mom or your dad or your uncles, that has a corrosive effect on your psyche. And if this guy harbored those sentiments, that's what he's doing to people. He's preventing them from being able to live a full American life. What else you got?
I think that's an important point. I think that we talk a lot about media bias.
Yeah.
And I think that where media bias exists is not where people think it does. This guy or any other guy, they're not going to sit there and say, Muslims are terrorists. They're not going to, maybe on Fox News, I don't know, but they're not going to say it here. And where the bias creeps in is when you choose to tell the story, how you choose to tell it.
Yeah.
Let's say you have a really great Muslim basketball player. What are you going to talk about? Are you going to talk about inclusion? Are you going to talk about, hey, that's pretty cool? Are you going to talk about, has he overcome adversity? Has he overcome prejudice? Or are you just going to say, there's a million different ways to tell it.
Yeah.
And the way that you tell it is important.
I agree with that. Listen, there's plenty more that we can go into. Matter of fact, we're going to go into one more piece of it. First of all, hat tip to Scott Bordeaux, formerly of the Arizona Republic, currently of The Athletic. He's the one who broke the story.
Thank you,
That's what
Scott.
we picked up on. But you also think it's got to do with free speech. Tell me a little bit about that.
I do. As soon as I wrote this story, people always say never read the comments. I read the comments.
Never read the comments.
But all of a sudden, people who are defending him are saying, free speech is dead in the United States. Whatever happened to the First Amendment? You know what happened to the First Amendment? Nothing. Mm-hmm. This is not a First Amendment issue. This is not a free speech issue. This is a private employer evidently disciplining or firing one of their employees, which is their right. He has every right to say whatever he wants to say. He's not getting arrested for it. He's not getting in any trouble for it legally. But his employer can fire him for doing it. If you or I did the same thing,
I'm not going to do the same thing.
I'm not either. But
don't be a bigot, right? Just stop right there. Don't be a bigot. Get to know somebody who's a little bit different from you. If somebody's a little bit different from you and that person and you are having a cup of coffee or you're having a conversation or you're having a sip of water or you're jogging down the street or you're playing softball together, you can get to know people. People are people. You can't paint any one group of people with one broad brush, particularly if it's something like that. So just don't be a bigot. Greg Moore.
Bill Goodykoontz.